Hey everybody, welcome back. Two Bald Nerds here. Mike is going to be with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about so you're dating a nerd. I mean, this is kind of like the week of love, right? Valentine's just happened. So Mike wasn't able to be with me last week. So we're going to just have a little bit of fun this week talking about so you're dating a nerd. I think we're going to have too much fun with this one, Mike.
Yeah, I was last week I was in Louisiana sharing the love with North Shore Technical. It's a wonderful community college on the North Shore of Lake Pontchartrain. Shout out to NTCC folks. We had a wonderful chat. We had like many hundreds of high schoolers and talking to them about what are they going to do now that they've graduated. And we certainly, one of the things I did mention was taking a look at CyberNow Labs, among other options. So it was fun. Yeah, but It's time. It is time to talk about love. Now you're happily married, right?
I am.
What do you? Well, no, Mike, I'm unhappily married. You can't. You have no choice.
Yeah,
Why,
she
yes,
might see this video.
That's right.
See this video, so I have to be careful what I say, right?
There's a Richard shaped voodoo doll, and she's like saying, "Just do it, do it." Yeah. So
she has her own hammer.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't have anything Valentine's Day, so I got here. I got a red hat.
I have nothing Valentine's Day.
I know we're so boring. We're nerds, man. It's
all on my video last week when you weren't here, I actually wore like a pinky purple shirt. It was really lovely.
Full of love. Outstanding. Love. That's amore, baby.
Yeah, right. Well, we talked about what people love about cyber and even what you love about CyberNow Labs. I had a couple of alumni on, and we had a lot of fun. But it's funny. You and I think both classify ourselves as nerds, right? I mean, we're two bald nerds, right? So we like things sci-fi, and we're nerdy kind of people. So I always think it's interesting when people ask, well, what is it like dating a nerd, right? Like,
so we're talking more like a actual person romance, the true eros love, as opposed to agape, as the Latins would say.
By the way, this is not cybersecurity or IT, guys. We're talking about loving a nerd.
Yeah, well, no, we're talking about, this is serious security, man. This is like the ultimate security. This is like stay in a relationship security, because Richard, you may find this hard to believe, but normal people seem to have an issue sometimes being in romantic relationships with nerds.
Well, we're unique. I mean, what can you say? We like weird things. We like different things. We like to read about stuff. We're the ones that when you go to a history museum or some sort of museum, we want to read everything. Like, we want to know all about everything that we're looking at. I mean, it's just, we're unique people. What can you say?
I'm terrible with, like, I love going when I'm in Washington, D.C., the Smithsonian Museum, the one up there by the airport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Udvar-Hazy.
Udvar-Hazy. I could never say that word. Yep. But I'm such an aviation fanatic that I'll start walking around, and usually within about 20 minutes, I get about 15 people, because I literally could, like, if this aircraft, then all the actual docents who are working there, they're like, but I understand. Yeah, no, museums, history, technology, gaming. What else am I missing here, Richard? What are the nerd traits?
I mean, there's sci-fi movies are probably one of the biggest ones that nerds, I think, are really into. We can talk about all kinds of sci-fi movies and sci-fi shows, sci-fi books. I can't personally. One thing I can't attach myself to is Dungeons and Dragons. I never got into it.
Then we won't talk about my World of Warcraft account.
Well, gosh, oh my gosh, see, I haven't. Unfortunately, in my older years, I've really kind of gotten away from gaming. I just don't have time for it. And I remember back even before War of Warcraft. Do you remember
EverQuest?
I think it was yeah, exactly, kind of like the predecessor, long time ago.
I played EverQuest too.
Yeah, so yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of that back then, but
it's so bad. Like with these old games, I don't want to play EverQuest anymore, but I'll get on YouTube and just play the EverQuest background theme music. It's like, oh, great memories. Yeah, that's true. So anyway, I mean, if you look at this collectively, one more thing before I get into this, Richard. Kirk or Picard?
Different reasons. I mean, honestly, I like them both for different reasons. I love Picard. I was a Next Generation guy. So you know, when I was younger, I really got into Star Trek, watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and then afterwards, I went back and watched the entire original series. I did watch Voyager. I watched Enterprise. I watched DS9. I mean, I've enjoyed watching the new ones now too. Picard, last season of Picard was a little hopefully they can bring it back. I definitely think they're trying to bring some of the magic back from Next Generation, because they have pretty much everybody from Next Generation is going to be.
Yeah, let's not. They're either that or they're signing photographs at conventions. They're glad to work. So
Right.
here, I want to share an absolutely true story with you. Many years ago, I was trying to hire a new instructor, and I got it down to 2 guys. And Richard, you'd swear their CVs were basically identical, and they were both great presenters, and blah 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 blah. And I had to come up with a tiebreaker. Technically, they knew like exactly the same stuff. So in the technical interview, I was stumped, and I was like, okay, I got it. Here's what we're going to do. And I asked them both this question. You ready?
Yep.
In the original Star Trek, there was an episode where the hippies took over the Enterprise. Now, in that episode, there was a guy with a lyre with a harp, and he kept singing the same song over and over again. Number 1, name the song, and number 2, sing it.
No,
Now,
I will fail on both. I know there was a song, but I couldn't sing it. I don't know the name.
Going Down to Eden was the name of the song. Yay, hey, brother. And they, of course, both of these guys could name the song, but only one could sing it. And I literally hired a guy because of his Trek knowledge. It's absolutely true. Richard
Awesome.
worked for me his name was Richard also. He worked for me for many, many years. Great guy, and a happy old grandpa now. We still say hello from time to time. Anyway, I mean, the big issue I think that comes into play with nerds is that, you know, when we think of what a nerd is, what are we? Bad at eye contact. We're terse to the point of being rude. Bad hygiene. I mean, let's go with all the classics, right? Glasses. You know, and
No
socially awkward. No, in your 20s, you still got hair. But
That's ours.
But if you look at collectively all of these different aspects of what a nerd is, to me, there's another type of person who meets all that criteria. Okay. Somebody who is not interested in you. Okay. Now let me explain. Like if I don't maintain eye contact, yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah. Try turning it off and turning it back on again, right? You just. And that's because nerds, and I'm putting you in this group, my brother bald nerd, and that is, I feel, and this is not an original Mike Myers concept. I picked this up years ago. I can't quote the source, but I believe in it very, very much. And that is that all nerds have what I call the project. In our brain right now is some kind of project. Like for me right now, I have decided I'm going to go back into Hyper-V, which I've always ignored as a hypervisor option. You know, I always use VirtualBox or KVM or something like that. And I feel that I've not given Microsoft Windows a fair shake on Hyper-V in years. So I've got it all strung up. And that's really, as much as I enjoy talking to you, literally when we stop talking, I'm going to run down to the lab and I'm going to be messing with Hyper-V because they're talking about internal versus external versus private networks, and it's completely wrong, and I'm going to rewrite everything. So I'm going to challenge you right now, Richard.
Oh boy.
Do you have a project right now?
I do. I have a Raspberry Pi that's sitting in my drawer in my office that I'm wanting to play with it and do some network traffic kind of stuff with it. I've got an initial load of Linux on it, but I haven't been able to finish my project. I'm too busy. I'm too busy doing videos with you.
You got to have time for your projects, man. It's important.
I know.
So, but you'd agree with me then that in general, nerds, Omer, he's always got a project, right? I mean, yeah, I consider him a brother nerd. And so the secret in romantic relationships with a nerd is that the non-nerd needs to, number one, understand that we have projects, okay? And then number two, they have to learn how to become the project. And this can be very tricky. But I'm going to talk about just male, female, cis type relationships because, well, that's what I am. So let's stick with what I know. And traditionally, because nerddom is, there are more as a percentage, more male nerds today than there were 30 years ago. And I'm not going to say why or what's happening or, fight the patriarchy or whatever. I'm just telling you that I have watched this for so long. And I love having gals. Man, it's wonderful to have a gal in the office from time to time. They smell better than we do. And so in general, that compels me to talk about non-nerd females in a romantic relationship with male nerds. Okay.
Right.
And
there are a lot of female nerds out there too.
There are, and I hug them every time I get a chance. I think it's just great to have them on board. And in fact, the nerd that I learned the most from was a good old Cajun gal named Sue Lennox. And this is back in the late 80s.
Was that a nickname? Lennox was her last name?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Sue Lennox.
That's like the perfect nerd name. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Sue was Cajun. So, she kind of talked like this a little bit, Shy. You don't know about the Cajun accent?
Well,
anyway.
Hang on a sec. I have to explore this further. I'm sorry, because my brain is reeling. Her first name was Sue. Was it spelled S-U, super user? Because that would be better.
All right, you are a nerd. Go sit in the car.
That would be awesome.
Well, she was great. Because I'd be the one, this is back in the DOS days, and I'd be like, oh, let's change the EMM386 value in the config.sys file. And she'd be like, boy, did you turn it on? And it was like, ooh, that would help. So literally my mentor, when I first started getting out of the user world and more into the support world, was a gal. So I Sue, if you're still out there, we should get together. I haven't seen you in years. But the trick to becoming a project can be a challenge sometimes. So there's two ways that I've seen gals do this. And number one, they can take on some nerdy properties themselves. And like, for example, it's like, Mike, I'm getting too many ads in my browser. Is there a way we could fix that? And, she's probably done her own research already and figure stuff out. And then I'm like, yeah, we can do, yeah. And the next thing you know, you're deep in thinking, here, hold the screwdriver, and she'd be like, no, hold that. Oh, okay, that works. And so by, diving a little bit into the nerd world, I think non-nerds are often well served because I don't know about you, but when I finish a project, I'm like, hey, let's go have dinner, baby. And, let's get a bottle of wine and, have a great time. And so that's one way.
So
I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I want to throw something else out there though too. Isn't it upon us as nerds to also make sure that we're focusing on turning our significant others into a project as well?
Okay, well, now to take a more serious tone. Yes, intellectually, we know that. However,
we're incapable sometimes.
We are, we're monotaskers. Yeah. Most of us have a degree of Asperger's. Most of us have a lot of challenges like that. And especially if you're what I call an entrenched nerd, usually somebody in the 30 plus crowd, the perpetual bachelor. It's not that you don't want to date. It's just like, I just got to get to level 120 in World of Warcraft,
Yeah,
it's very hard, but the payoff. So I'm putting a bit of the onus on the non-nerd here, okay? But I don't disagree with you. It's just hard for us, and we're so shy and all that stuff. So I think. So what? Oh wait. Oh yeah. So the second thing that a non-nerd can do is direct the attention directly towards them. Now I'm not going to get into, Cupid stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. But a lot of times, like one of the ways it works on me is cooking.
Hmm.
And because I'm a pretty good cook, Richard. And so when a non-nerd's like, hey, Mike, let's stay in tonight and try something. Let's make a beef bourguignon or something like that. For me, that works. I can make it nerdy though. I'll warn you. Measuring is not an art. Measuring is a skill. That's why they give you those different size cups.
That's why they give you the exact numbers. Come on now.
Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, one of the things that drives me nuts here in the United States is that we still use imperial units for cooking. It's so much easier when it's like, I need 2 grams. Okay, now that makes sense. But 1/8 of a tea, is that a teaspoon or a tablespoon? Wait, it's a little tea, so I guess that means teaspoon. Yeah, that's craziness. Yeah, don't get me started. I'm a big metric fanatic. Except when it comes to milk. I don't know why, but everything else needs to be metric. But so, bring the nerd into that type of stuff. The only other trick that I always recommend to folks is, I do get in this conversation a surprisingly large amount of time, Richard, is that you've got to time it. So, like, for example, you're saying you're too busy to game. Well, that's because you haven't allotted your game time. So I call them poker nights. By the way, if you ever want to make money from me easily, Richard, ask me to play poker. I'll hand you $500 and just leave. It's easier.
That sounds like an easy $500. I like it.
Well, that's the thing is that so I guess this could be a corollary. I'm inventing this as I talk, and that is containerization of projects. How does that sound? Okay. Where Wednesday
Allocation
night
of time.
Yeah, but as the significant other to a nerd, you're understanding of that. And because if I had my way, I would grow a big horrific beard, one of those beards that go way up on your cheeks, and I'd bathe every Saturday, need it or not, and I would be playing games. I've got 300 games on my Steam account, and or waste incredibly long number of hours in YouTube videos. So containerization of that type of stuff, give your nerd time to project. And then that way, then it's easier for me to take out the trash and do the bills and, that kind of stuff. So, but it's all about the project, man. I'm telling you, and again, because I'm only familiar with male-female cis relationships where the male is the nerd, every successful relationship I've seen of that type always included the non-nerd being sensitive to the concept of the project. I wish I could find the website where I discovered this. Is probably 15 years ago. And I've obviously developed it a lot farther than they ever did, but I just always thought it made sense. It works. So how much of any of this works in your life?
Well, I mean, obviously I have my wife and my daughter, so, I have to allocate time for them.
Absolutely.
So that's where some of my, gaming time or downtime or whatever I think ends up going is towards the family, which I appreciate. I definitely do. I love my wife. I love my daughter. And I always have.
I love my wife. I'm kidding.
It.
I'm teasing.
Robotic answer.
Don't make your man lie to you.
Shameless plug. My wife is amazing. I love her all. I love her so much.
Where's your tinfoil hat? Well, I got it over here.
She will too see this video, right?
All right. Well, now let's back it up a little bit then, Richard. You were single at some point.
Of course.
You weren't born with a wedding ring.
No.
So did anything that I just talked about, did any of this tie in? See, you're not the best example because you are very nerdy, but you're also extremely high functioning. Okay. But I'm still going to challenge you on this.
I'm a pretend nerd in a lot of ways in my brain. Like I naturally am quiet. I like to be by myself. Growing up, I wasn't the person that was in the center of the room, making friends with everybody. I was in the back corner watching everybody else. I didn't talk to anybody. I was super quiet, super shy. As a matter of fact, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the girls that I dated or were friends with, they were nerds too. So it was like,
There's it. Project function number one is, to incorporate your nerddom.
Find another nerd.
Yeah.
Project one, find another nerd.
I've got some dear friends of mine who run a popular con down here in Houston, and they are assembled from the parts of lesser nerds, man. I'm telling you, Joe and Tracy, hey guys, and they've been married like forever, and like they have this lovely home, and upstairs they have a nice pool table. Although I don't think anybody has ever once played pool on it, because they got a board on it and they got it all set up for Warhammer, or whatever game du jour that they're into. And there's like 1,500 pieces on this. And this isn't a little pool table, Rich. Is a big, like full-size pool table. And it's got a board that's bigger than that. Okay. This thing is covered with all these little Warhammer pieces. And I'll go over their house and I'll move one piece. Just one as arbitrary piece, and I'll just move it like half an inch. Joe knows. He knows when I've done that. So no, I would agree. But actually, okay, so here you are, shy guy in the corner.
I grew up.
Okay, well, did she make the first move?
So I don't know which one we're talking about. We didn't specify here.
Your wife, the woman.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're talking about my wife,
yes,
actually, we were friends. We were coworkers. So it didn't start out as dating. We literally were friends, and we got to know each other. She got to know me. She got to know me, and I got to know her, and we worked really well together, and it just kind of continued on. And 25 years later, we've been together. So, I mean,
mazel tov.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, but it's tough for us. It's absolutely tough for us. I remember back in the day when talking to someone I was interested in was an absolute it was almost impossible,
See,
so,
that for me, when I was in high school, like when I was a freshman in high school, I was 4'9". And I'm all the way up to 5'6" now. Woo! But I remember in high school, which is where it really first started to happen. I'm like, if I don't get out there, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not, and I just picked up a secondary personality, which is might be what you're seeing here today.
Yeah.
And I would go and ask out the prettiest girl in the room. And all my buddies would be like, why are you doing that? She's not going to like you. And I got this idea in my head a long time ago, and it was, you know what? I'm going to let her make that decision.
Yeah.
And I have, let's face it, Richard, I'm not the prettiest picture you've ever seen. And I just remember, and it started in high school, I would just always, just be nice. And, but that was extremely difficult. I literally almost, did you ever watch Community, the television series?
No.
Oh my gosh. The nerd guy, what's his name? Can't remember his name off the top of my head. And he literally, he's super nerdy, definitely Aspergery, but he would literally take on another persona because he watches so much television. And like to pick up a gal, he decides that he's Don Draper from Mad Men.
Oh, gee whiz.
That was almost what I was doing back then. Maybe not quite that severe, but it was pretty close. But no, I just I get to take another serious tone. I worry. Are you familiar with the term incel?
No.
Involuntary celibate. You should look it up. It's not a super happy thing. The big chunks of primarily what I would consider nerdy guys who have just basically dropped out of the dating scene. And I always reach out to those guys when I meet them, because it's like, okay, number one, shave. Number two, there's this stuff called deodorant. All right. But you don't have to do too much more than that. And, don't be afraid to say hello. These guys get all, and I think this is a very big nerd trait when it comes to relationships is nerds, they just self-judge themselves to the point that they don't do anything. And I don't think that's healthy. You got to get out there, love is in the air, babe, and
Love is in the air.
we should write a song like that.
Yeah, well, I don't know about all that, but I will say that nerds are good at heart. We're good people. We're not always the easiest to get along with, but we're definitely worth we're worth the time. We're worth the effort, right?
Just find that project, baby, and you'll win every time.
Well, if you are dating a nerd out there and you're looking for advice, I'm not sure that this is really the best advice video we've ever done.
It's the most fun one we've ever done.
You think so?
I don't know. The email was pretty good.
This one might be one of those ones we look back on and we're like, what were we thinking? Well, I'm sure there's some people out there that absolutely will benefit from listening to us jammer on about nerds and how people would try to date a nerd or want to date a nerd, right? So hopefully they'll find some value in it.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see. All right, Mike, thanks again for being with me, buddy. Nice to see you again. Have a good one.
You too, buddy. If you like Two Bold Nerds, check out our entire playlist right here. It's a lot of fun. We'll see you there.